Hi dear students. In part 1, I was talking to you about literary terms. A sound knowledge of literary terms is essential to to be fully to be fully able to understand or comprehend poetry. In part 1 I did teach you some literary terms, and I'll continue with the same. The next literary term I would like to discuss with you here is transferred epithet. Transferred epithet is an interesting literary term. This is a rhetorical device in which an adjective is applied to a word that it does not usually describe. This is something like misplacing an adjective or using an adjective with a noun that it is not usually used with. It is kind of strange. To speak of the definition, I write it for you here. This is a rhetorical device in which an adjective is applied to a word that it does not usually describe. For example, wrinkled sea. Now in wrinkled sea, you can say wrinkled face, wrinkled body, wrinkled hand, wrinkled skin, but wrinkled sea, to talk about the waves of the sea, you say wrinkled sea. So wrinkled is an adjective that is not usually used with sea, but we are using it here, and so it is a transferred epithet. Another one, terrified hands. This is from the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. There Aunt Jennifer's terrified hands will lie in the grave. So the hands are terrified. Can the hands be terrified? You can say a terrified man, terrified wife, terrified dog, terrified bitch, terrified person. But terrified hands, we're using this adjective to describe a noun that this adjective does not usually describe. And so there is transferred epithet in this. Okay? One more example. The angry cloud. The angry cloud. Well, an angry father, an angry mother, an angry man, an angry young man. But the angry cloud, the cloud is angry. Can the cloud be angry with someone? But we're using this adjective to describe a noun that it does not usually describe. And it sounds strange to some, but it is a literary device to emphasize a point, to communicate the idea more effectively, to beautify the poetry. All figures of speech beautify poetry. In fact, transferred epithet deepens the meaning of the adjective. For example, terrified hands, Of course, the hands would not be terrified. What does it mean? It shows that the woman was very terrified. Probably her hands were trembling. She was too terrified, excessively terrified. So this is to emphasize the idea. This is to bring an idea home to your heart. The angry cloud. Yet another example, the jealous skies. Can the sky be jealous? But in poetry, it can be possible. The skies can be made to be jealous. So the word, the jealous, or the adjective, the adjective jealous is modifying a noun that it does not usually modify, and so there is transferred epithet. So you'll find many of them in poetry. That's all about transferred epithet. The next figure of speech we would do is repetition. Repetition. As the name suggests, there is something being repeated. There is reiteration, there is repetition of something. So, poets often repeat single words, phrases, or lines to create a musical effect, or to emphasize a point, or to draw the reader's attention, or to lend unity to a piece. So, let me write it for you guys so that you can fully comprehend it. Poets often repeat single words, phrases, or lines. And what is the purpose of that? To create a musical effect, or to emphasize a point, or to draw the reader's attention, or to lend unity to a piece. So, poets repeat words or phrases or lines to create a musical effect, or to emphasize a point, or to draw the reader's attention, to make the reader focused, or to lend unity to the poetic piece that the writer is producing. Repetition. For example, day after day, day after day. This line occurs, or this repeated phrase occurs in a poem. Day after day, day after day. Another example, water, water everywhere. And the third example is this is in the poem My Mother at 66, written by Kamala Das. So there she says, all I did was smile and smile and smile. All I did was smile and smile and smile. So the word smile is being repeated. I hope you understood this. So, and this way it helps create a musical impact, or it helps make the reader pay focused attention to an idea, or it helps lend unity to a piece. Okay, now the third thing I would like to teach you today is this: rhyme. It is almost in every poem. Most poems possess rhyme schemes. So what is rhyme? This is the use of words in a poem that have the same sound, especially at the end of lines. This is the use of words in a poem that have the same sound, especially at the ends of lines. So this is the repetition of the sound at the ends of the lines. For example, way nay, say lay, sight night. These are the words occurring at the ends of lines. Cloud shroud. I would also like to write down two lines from a poem for you. So, once upon a time, a frog croaked away in Bengal bog. So, frog bog. Clear? There's rhyme scheme. Frog bog. I hope you understood rhyme. The next and the last thing is contrast. So what is contrast but a difference between two or more people or things? Difference between two or more people or things that you can see clearly when they are compared or put close together. By contrast, the idea is more effectively communicated. So, a difference between two or more people or things that you can see clearly when they are compared or put close together. Contrast. The poet first talks about her mother, who is dozing off, sitting next to her in the car, and whose face is Asian like that of a cop. In My Mother at 66, the poet's mother's face is like this. Her face Asian. like dead away, corpse. Corpse means dead body, so her face was lifeless like a dead body's. Now, this is one thing. Then the poet switches her mind from her mother to the outside world, to the world going on outside her car. So there she sees trees and trees sprinting, and the merry children spilling out of their homes. So there is a clear contrast, here trees moving or the trees running, the merry children spilling is coming in large numbers out of their homes. Okay, so her Asian face, or her face Asian like that of a dead bodies, is compared to the trees sprinting or to the merry children spilling out of their homes. So here it shows death, and here it shows life. If the poet had just talked about her mother and stopped there and not contrasted it with the trees sprinting outside and the merry children full of life, then she would not have been able to communicate her idea so effectively as she has done now. So there is a contrast between life and death, and that is more effectively communicated by this comparison between her mother's Asian face and the trees sprinting outside and the merry children spilling out of their homes. Got this? I want to give you one more example from Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. This was one example. Another example. In Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, Aunt Jennifer lived a life full of terror. She was always under the pressure of her husband. She was always restricted, but the tigers on the panel, they were always prancing freely and bravely, unafraid of anybody. So there is a contrast. The auntie's condition, Aunt Jennifer's condition, is all the more effectively communicated by contrasting her her condition, her enslaved condition, to the or her condition of slavery to the freedom of the tigers. I write it for you here. Second example. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie. But the tigers, look at the contrast. The tigers will go on prancing proud and unafraid. Will go on prancing proud and unafraid. So there is a contrast between the condition between the Aunt Jennifer's condition of slavery and the tiger's freedom. And by the contrast, Aunt Jennifer's miserable condition is all the more effectively expressed. And that is the benefit of using contrast in poetry. And that's why the poet has chosen to use this literary device here. That's it about this. Thank you very much.